Don Felder, a key member of the Eagles, sits in quiet reflection as he finally breaks years of silence about the inner turmoil that defined one of rock's most iconic bands. At the center of it all, Frey, a driving force behind the Eagles, and according to Felder, the source of relentless conflict. From backstage arguments to power plays that fractured the band, Felder's revelations paint Frey in a dramatically different light. Frey wasn't just difficult, he was combative, controlling, and, as Felder puts it, deeply insincere in his relationships with bandmates. For Felder, the partnership with Frey was marked by tension and betrayal, and now he's telling the world the truth. Don Felder, a gifted guitarist, brought his distinct sound and creativity to the Eagles, only to find himself constantly pushed aside by Frey. Felder recalls how Frey, alongside Don Henley, worked tirelessly to consolidate control over the band. Together, the two orchestrated decisions that left Felder feeling like an outsider in a group he had helped shape. Frey's controlling nature often clashed with Felder's artistic independence. While Felder contributed significantly to the band's signature sound, most famously co-writing Hotel California, he felt his ideas were dismissed or undermined by Frey. Felder claims made it clear that only his and Henley's vision mattered. Tensions ran high during recording sessions, with Frey berating Felder over minor disagreements. The guitarist remembers those moments as suffocating, a reminder that no matter how much he contributed, his voice would always be drowned out by Frey's overbearing presence. While Frey and Henley were often seen as the tight-knit leaders of the Eagles, Felder suggests that their relationship was far more transactional than it appeared. Frey, he explains, had a knack for creating alliances that served his interests, but lacked genuine connection. Henley was no exception. According to Felder, Frey's partnership with Henley was based more on shared ambition than real camaraderie. Frey would often align himself with Henley during disputes, presenting a united front that effectively sidelined Felder and others. Behind closed doors, however, Frey and Henley's partnership was fraught with its own tensions. Felder remembers moments when Frey's charm slipped, revealing a more calculated and manipulative side. He describes Frey as someone who could flip from being jovial and approachable to cold and dismissive, depending on what served him best at the time. Frey's difficult personality didn't just create friction with Felder, it extended to other band members as well. Bernie Leadon, the band's original guitarist, famously left the Eagles in 1975 after a heated altercation with Frey. Leadon, frustrated with the band's growing focus on commercial success, poured a beer over Frey's head before walking away. Frey's reaction? Dismissive and unapologetic, cementing his reputation as someone unwilling to compromise. Randy Meisner, the band's bassist, also found himself on the receiving end of Frey's relentless demands. During a 1977 tour, Frey pushed Meisner to perform "Take It to the Limit," a song that required hitting an emotionally and physically taxing high note. When Meisner refused, citing exhaustion, Frey exploded in anger, accusing him of letting the band down. The incident left Meisner feeling humiliated and isolated, ultimately leading to his departure from the group. Even outside the band, Frey's reputation as difficult to work with followed him. Industry insiders described him as charming in public, but ruthless behind the scenes. He had a way of alienating collaborators, and his insistence on having the final word often created unnecessary tension. For Don Felder, the 1990s Hell Freezes Over reunion tour was meant to be a fresh start, a chance for the Eagles to recapture the magic that had once defined them. But instead of healing old wounds, the reunion only deepened the fractures. Almost from the outset, the long-buried tensions between Felder and Frey resurfaced, as sharp and unresolved as ever. What should have been a triumphant comeback quickly descended into a battle for control, with Frey wielding his authority in ways that left Felder feeling diminished and disrespected. Felder recalls how Frey, despite the years that had passed since the band's initial split, treated him not as an equal collaborator, but as a subordinate. Frey's dismissive attitude wasn't subtle, it was direct and demeaning. Felder's ideas were routinely brushed aside, his contributions minimized. While Felder had been instrumental in crafting the sound that propelled the Eagles to superstardom, Frey seemed intent on reducing his role to that of a sideman, a mere cog in a machine that Frey and Don Henley controlled. This dynamic wasn't new, but during the reunion tour, it became more blatant. Frey and Henley's demand for a larger share of the profits was a particularly sore point for Felder. To him, it was a slap in the face, a stark reminder that, in their eyes, he was expendable. While the band's public image was one of unity and harmony, behind closed doors, Felder was struggling against a system designed to sideline him. The breaking point came during a meeting where Frey's temper boiled over. According to Felder, Frey's anger was volcanic, his words cutting and humiliating. In that moment, Felder says, he felt not like a founding member of one of rock's most iconic bands, but like an outsider, someone whose presence was merely tolerated. The incident left Felder shaken, his confidence eroded by the man who had once been his partner in creating some of music's most enduring hits. The shouting match wasn't just an argument, it was a turning point. It made clear that the tension between Felder and Frey was irreparable. For Felder, it was the culmination of years of conflict, a moment that crystallized the toxic dynamic that had long defined their relationship. For Frey, it was likely a calculated move to assert his dominance, a way of reminding Felder who truly held the reins. By 2001, the decision was made. Don Felder was out. While the official narrative framed his departure as a necessary step for the band's continued success, the reality was far more personal. Frey and Henley spearheaded the decision, effectively forcing out a man who had been instrumental in their rise to fame. For Felder, the dismissal wasn't just a professional loss, it was a deeply personal betrayal. He had poured his heart into the Eagles, only to be cast aside when he was no longer seen as convenient. The firing left scars that would never fully heal. Felder's contributions to the Eagles, his guitar work, his songwriting, his influence on their sound, were undeniable, yet he was pushed out in a way that felt callous and dismissive. It was a bitter end to a partnership that had brought unparalleled creative success, but also profound personal pain. The Hell Freezes Over tour was supposed to be a celebration, a reminder of why the Eagles had become legends in the first place. Instead, for Don Felder, it became a symbol of everything that had gone wrong. The conflicts that had simmered for decades finally boiled over, leaving him on the outside of a band he had helped define. The pain of that departure lingered long after the final note was played. A stark reminder that even in the world of rock and roll, success often comes at a steep personal cost. Glenn Frey's legacy as a musician is one that towers over rock history. His creative vision and dynamic presence were pivotal in crafting the Eagles' unmistakable sound, the very essence of hits like Hotel California and Take It Easy. But the bright spotlight of his achievements is not without its shadows. For Don Felder and others who shared the stage and the studio with Frey, his legacy is a complicated one, woven with brilliance but stained by conflict. Beneath the veneer of a rock legend was a man whose ambition often clashed with his humanity, leaving those around him grappling with the cost of his success. Working with Frey was both an opportunity and a challenge. On the one hand, his drive pushed the Eagles to heights few bands could dream of. On the other, that same drive made him an uncompromising and often overbearing force within the group. For Felder, collaborating with Frey was like walking a tightrope, balancing between creative collaboration and personal tension. Frey demanded perfection, but left little room for dissent, creating an atmosphere that was as stifling as it was productive. What made Frey's personality so difficult, Felder suggests, was the intensity with which he approached every aspect of the band. Frey saw the Eagles not just as a band, but as a brand, something to be controlled and perfected at all costs. This obsessive need for control often led to clashes with bandmates who felt their own voices were being drowned out. The Eagles' success, while extraordinary, came at the expense of relationships that might have thrived under a more inclusive leader. Frey's talent was undeniable, but for those who worked closely with him, it was his ambition that left the deepest impression, and not always for the better. While his determination was key to the Eagles' rise, it often overshadowed the creative contributions of his bandmates. Felder recalls how Frey's insistence on having the final say in both musical and business decisions created an environment where collaboration felt more like a competition. Frey's focus was singular, achieving and maintaining success no matter the cost. This relentless pursuit of greatness wasn't without its merits. The band's polished sound and unparalleled success are testaments to Frey's vision. But for Felder and others, it also came with a price, a working relationship defined more by tension than by camaraderie. Frey's ambition often left little room for compromise, turning what should have been a shared journey into a battleground of egos. Perhaps the most enduring mark of Frey's leadership is the trail of broken relationships that followed him. From the dramatic exits of Bernie Leadon and Randy Meisner to the eventual fallout with Don Felder, Frey's relentless drive often left his bandmates feeling sidelined or outright alienated. For Felder, the experience was bittersweet, an opportunity to be part of something extraordinary, tempered by the constant strain of working with someone so difficult. Frey's approach to leadership was rooted in control, and while that control brought the band extraordinary success, it also left a legacy of unresolved conflicts. Band members who might have remained lifelong collaborators instead became casualties of Frey's unyielding personality. The very traits that made him a leader, the focus, the intensity, the drive, were also the traits that fractured relationships and created lasting tensions within the group. The Eagles are often celebrated for their seamless harmonies and timeless music, but as Felder and others reveal, the harmony rarely extended beyond the stage. Frey's role in shaping the band's sound and success cannot be overstated, but neither can the shadow his personality cast over their history. For those who worked closely with him, Frey's legacy is as much about the conflicts he fostered as it is about the music he created. The tension between Frey's brilliance and his difficult nature adds a layer of complexity to the Eagles' story. It's a reminder that greatness often comes with flaws, and that the pursuit of perfection can sometimes leave behind more than just chart-topping hits. It can leave a wake of unresolved tensions and fractured relationships. Frey's ambition drove the Eagles to incredible heights, but it also ensured that his legacy would forever be tinged with drama and discord.